So good morning and a very happy new year to all. Our governor team, our district leaders, PDGs, our panelists here today, distinguished panelists, the Rotary members and Rotary actors, they're joining today, and our friends of Rotary. On behalf of DG Suzanne Zabindan, District 7080 and the District Vocational Service Committee, it's my pleasure to welcome you all today in this session of District Vocational Service Webinar Series Part 1. I am Dr. Kiran Dugal and Vice President Rotary Club Brampton South. And currently I am the Chair for District Vocational Services. And I will be the moderator for today's session. So for a quick, I'll hand over the floor for a quick note on the Zoom housekeeping to our technical support and the IT committee chair, the AG for Brampton Cluster, Sunil Sharma. Sunil, on to you for that.
Thank you, Vocational Chair Kiran, for giving me this opportunity to let everyone know. So the Zoom meeting is been recorded today, and there are some housekeeping items. If anyone have any questions during the webinar or after the webinar, there is a button on the bottom of your screens. You can raise your hand. If you have any questions, you can post it in the Q&A session, and this will be addressed at the end of the webinar. If you have any technical difficulties in between the webinar, please log off and log in back with the same credentials which you have received, and you'll be good to go. Back to you, Kiran. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunil. Thank you. And now we know that for next some 75 minutes, we are in safe hands technically. And for all the participants, I'm sharing that due to some sudden health issues, one of our panelists was unable to join today's session. And we wish him a quick recovery. And I'm grateful to all my panelists for accommodating that. And moving on to session. So this second avenue of service, the vocational service, has been an integral to the spirit of Rotary ever since its first Rotary Club organized its committee on business methods. And it reminds us that our professional conduct is as significant as our professional success. And our conversation today will be centered around the theme vocational service in a dynamic, rapidly changing world, its relevance, responsibilities, and way forward. As we know that we are living in a world where these days the nature of our work is rapidly changing, primarily being driven by the technology, economics, and shifting social expectations. But yet then Rotary continues to stand by its timeless values of integrity, service, and excellence, I'll say. That raises an important question that how do we remain relevant without losing our, I'll say, compassionate grounds, our core values, and how do we adapt without compensating who we are? And before I start the discussion with the panelists on, I would like to acknowledge and thank our district governor, Suzanne Zabindan, whose leadership and guidance always has encouraged us and helped us out of so many situations. It's an exemplar for our district. And Madam Governor, we are all honored by your presence today. And may I request you to share your opening remarks for today's session today?
Certainly. Thank you very much, Kieran, for those very kind words. And well, even though it is already a little bit into January, Happy New Year to you all. May you have a wonderful and peaceful year ahead. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be part of this um, webinar as a participant as district governor. And I'm very honored to have such a wonderful vocational service team in our district who are doing so much to revive vocational service um, currently and in the future. Because we sometimes hear that members do not know what vocational service is, and I think it is important that we remind everyone about vocational service and what it means to us. And with that, I don't want to keep the panel any longer and our participants. So thank you again for everything you do, and enjoy the webinar. Thank you very much, Dr. Kiran.
Thank you, DG Suzanne, for these thoughtful and encouraging words, actually. And we appreciate your direction and support always. Recently, I was visiting my son and his family in US. My 13 years old grandson asked me a question one day, Grandma, why don't you come to my practices? So his soccer practices usually take place in the evening hours when usually our club or district meetings are scheduled for. So when I was asked by him what we do there, and I told him in a simple terminology that what Rotary is, why we meet, and what we do. He listened very patiently and after a few moments, he asked very sincerely, do you get paid for that? So that innocence in which he asked and his expression, that just stayed with me. Not that I wanted to be paid, I want to be paid, but to me it reflected the world in which our younger generation is being raised into. A world, uh, I mean, where every action is expected to be a transaction. And yet, Rotary's biggest strength is service without expectations, service above self, or service not being measured in money, but in its connotation. For 20 years, I had been dedicating 2 hours in the morning from my professional, uh, I mean, volunteering my professional services to a charitable hospital. And very recently, I was just sharing my vision with a fellow Rotarian about my thinking of that we get some expert help, expert services for the having some projects for the under privileged societies and everything. And very practical question surfaced: who is going to pay for that? And for me, it was not just a personal moment then, and to me, it was a global dilemma we are facing. And we know that in a society where everything, I mean, this era of advanced technology, the surging prices, the resource-driven society, the systems, the question is, how do we preserve the compassionate service? And how do we sustain our vocational service when the cost of expertise itself is so expensive? Um, this question hammers not only the healthcare sector, the business or education or technology, but it's true for every profession around us. And perhaps the answer lies in not returning to what the service used to be, but just envisioning what the service can be. So that's a walk we are going to take today. And to explore during that journey, we are joined by a panel of an outstanding panel of experts representing the diverse professional and social perspectives. So let me introduce our panel today to all of you. Eminent business and Rotary leader Valerie K. Wefer. You can, yeah. The former RI president, RI director, founding chair of Rotary's DEI Advisory Committee Council, a recipient of Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal. Valerie brings to us the seasoned Rotary leadership and governance perspective. A family physician, highly rated by his patients, Dr. Jovin Burgess, president and board chair of Ontario College of Family Physicians, assistant dean primary care education with GMU School of Medicine. Jovin brings to us the expertise from the healthcare, education, and ethics. And probably the youngest of the all today is Amisha Murjani, director with Brampton Board of Trade and Brampton Environmental Alliance, and founder of an award-winning sustainability-focused food enterprise. Having food and nutrition academia and MBA in ISM, Amisha brings to us the insights from the business, workforce, trends, and innovation. Thank you all for being there for us today. And to start with our session, to begin with, I'll invite each of the panelists to share a brief, around 2.5 minutes individual perspective, reflecting on how your profession has helped you evolve, what concerns what inspires you about the work values today, and just that moment or a brief experience from your professional life that shaped your understanding regarding the service responsibility and ethical practices. Valerie, may I start with you to invite you to begin on that?
Thank you so much, Dr. Kieran, and hello, everyone. It's wonderful that we have a number of participants joining, as this is Vocational Service Month in Rotary, so very appropriate for us to be meeting. For me, vocational service has never been a buzzword or a theory or a slogan. It's something that we live and should live every single day in our business. So just to give you a bit of background, my husband and I were Tim Horton franchisees for 22 years. And from very early beginnings, we made the conscious decision to be inclusive employers of people with disabilities of all types. And it wasn't token roles or special programs. They were real job for real pay with real expectations. At any given time, we had about 16% of our team who self-identified as having a disability. But what surprised some people, but never surprised us, was the impact that this had on our business. Because we quickly realized that having a diverse team brought more innovation, fewer accidents, less time off, and ultimately a more productive workplace. People showed up for each other, they took pride in their work, and brought perspectives to their jobs and to our business that we wouldn't otherwise have had. So this experience reinforced something that I strongly believe in, and that, as Dr. Kieran mentioned, I chaired Rotary's work for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and diversity isn't just the right thing to do. It's a competitive advantage, because when we bring people together with different abilities and backgrounds and perspectives, you build stronger teams and better outcomes. And that lesson goes well beyond business. It's certainly the lesson I learned from business, but it really applies directly to our Rotary clubs and how we serve our communities. Because when we include more voices and create opportunities for everyone to contribute, we don't weaken our organization as we didn't weaken our business. We strengthen everything we do. So vocational service at its best is about using our professions to create dignity, opportunity, and impact. And I'm super proud that in our business, we did just that. But I'm grateful for how that experience continues to shape the way I approach service today in Rotary and how we build teams and how I view leadership and how I think we, to Kieran's point, need to think about how we can make vocational service relevant to today's organizations, to today's leaders, and to our future leaders in Rotary, in business, and in society. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie, for those wonderful words. And I'll now move on to Jovin for your insights on that.
Thank you very
What
much.
your profession has done to you, how has it made
Thank
you
you, Dr.
be the Jovin which of today?
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Karen. It's a pleasure to speak about something that's important to all of us, which is service above self, and really how it's a bedrock to our functioning society. When I entered my practice and when I entered the role of a family physician, I sort of bought into the myth of the hero doctor. It's a bit of a seductive narrative. We were trained to believe that if we're smart enough, if we work late enough, if we care enough, we can be the sole guardians of our patients' well-beings. And I viewed at that time service as a measure of my own personal stamina. I thought if I served well, if I served well, it would mean that I was the smartest person in the room and one with all the answers, the person that could fix the broken body with a prescription pad. Reality is important because with the complexities of modern life, it really will shatter that myth. It's really important that we move away from a hero model because it's not just obsolete, but it's dangerous. It causes huge burnout. It causes bottlenecks within the community's health. And it's always limited by individuals' energy levels. I personally learned that a prescription will never help fix people who are unhoused or people who have difficulty maintaining their profession. And that my medical expertise is useless if my patient is too isolated to be able to get to a pharmacy. Recognize very early that there are two experts in every room. There is a medical expert, but there is a patient and family expert. And my professional evolution has really been working towards a journey of intellectual humility. And so today, what inspires me is not the autonomy of a physician, but the interconnectedness of a team. What I've learned within the highest form of vocational service is not trying to be the source of all solutions, but rather to become the architect of a community that wraps around a patient. Service to me really means checking the ego at the door and asking who else can help this patient better than I can. Sometimes that answer is a dietitian, sometimes a social worker, sometimes a pharmacist, sometimes community groups like Rotary. And so I come to you not as a hero doctor with all the answers, but as a humble steward of the system that needs your partnership to survive. Thank you. You're on mute, Dr. Kieran.
Sorry. Amisha, I'll move on to you now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kiran, for having me here today. And on the topic of the youngest, I just would like to say that looks can be deceptive, so we'll just leave it at that. But thank you so much for having me on this amazing panel and learning from everyone. So for me, when Rotary talks about vocational service, I think about how our professional skills show up in real life, especially under pressure. In my former life, I was a banker. My last corporate position was as branch manager for one of the top 5 banks in Canada. And so service and vocational service was, because I was in the service industry, it was kind of drilled into me from the very beginning. Right now, I work in the food industry where our decisions affect people's health, dignity, and access to good food. Over the past decade, I've seen the environment change dramatically. Rising costs, labor shortages, rapid technological shifts, especially with the leaps and bounds in AI, and increasing demand for speed and convenience. What hasn't changed are the core vocational values of integrity, excellence, and service. What has changed is how often those values are tested. For me, vocational service today means using professional judgment responsibly, choosing quality over shortcuts, fairness over convenience, and transparency over ease, even when those choices make business much harder. In a rapidly changing world, vocational service isn't about preserving old models. It's about applying enduring values in new, complex realities so our work continues to serve people and communities meaningfully. Thank you.
So, yeah, thank you. And any incidents in your professional life which stayed with you to help you think on these lines, if you can want to. Otherwise, I'll move on to next.
No, absolutely. I think throughout my career, whether I was in banking or now even in the food industry, I've seen things. So, service, at the end of the day, it's the human interaction that is the most relevant and that counts the most. I may have the most amazing product or the most amazing service, the best deals, the best discounts, but what really matters at the end of the day is the way I interact with my clients, with my peers, with people above me. So it's the human interaction that counts. And I think every single time it has made a very big impact on how I change what I do and how I do it. Even when it comes to a simple thing of a Google review, especially in my food business, where somebody gave a 1 star just because they perceived things differently. And then the way I am is I take it pretty personally and I say, what can I learn from this and how can I make things better? And I think that changing that willingness to learn, I think, is really important. And also how I train my team to make sure that those issues do not happen again.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for all those thoughtful personal reflections. And now let's widen the lens and examine how entire professions are being reshaped or transformed. With that context in place, we are now moving into our real discussion. So, for each question I'll put on here, I'll invite two panelists to put forward their point of view, and keeping responses to again 2.5 minutes. And so let's begin. And my first question here is that looking beyond individual experiences, which we have discussed over the past decade, what broader shifts in your profession or work sector have most influenced how vocational values are understood, practiced, or challenged? Do you see these values being reinterpreted or expressed differently on today's grounds? Valerie, may I invite you to begin this, followed by Dr. Jobin on this for this
Sure.
question.
Thank you so much. I retired 8 years ago. So, I think what I'll answer this question based on Rotary, which is really my full-time job. To Kieran's grandson's point, we don't get paid, but it is my full-time job and we love every minute of it. When we think about Rotary and how it was established and how vocational service was originally the intent of why we were established, the world looked very, very different, of course. People worked locally. Hierarchies were very clear within organizations. And it was kind of a bold idea that responded to where society was at the time. Our occupations weren't separate from service, but a really powerful expression of what we were doing. But today, I don't think that's outdated. I think it's more relevant than ever, but I think we need to look at how we can continue to make that relevant. So, I spoke a little bit about inclusion and what our classification meant, bringing different professions into the room. And that was really progressive because we each brought different perspectives to everything we do. But today, that has evolved, not just from professions, but into people. and people being the center of everything, and the different demographics that come together in that people that we talk about. So the other thing is, when we talk about service, we're now asking new questions, and they're probably more ethical, and they have to do with everything that we live in society today. For example, technology, and we touched on a little bit, and I know we're going to in the future in the questions today, AI. And we have to ask ourselves, when it comes to inclusion, who's being excluded from those opportunities, and who is lacking access to the mentorship and the education and everything that we provide through our vocations. So who is lacking that access, and how can we use our vocation to open more doors? So it's certainly important, but how can we take our vocations and move them forward? So how can we learn from the last decade and then say what is relevant today? When we talk about integrity, and I touched on it a little bit, let's talk about the four-way test. It's still so meaningful, and perhaps more meaningful today in the world we live in. But again, talking about that ethical landscape, it has become a lot more complex, because there's consequences to everything that we do. We are visible all the time. And so it's not just about being honest individuals, it's about being responsible stewards of that influence, of our influence on social media, on how we use technology. So it intersects, vocational service now intersects with so many data ethics. We talk about, sustainability a lot in Rotary. That is something also that we've learned that is our responsibility through our vocation. So I'll leave it there, but I think we have this evolving identity of what service leadership means, and we need to concentrate on ethics and impact and inclusion in order to drive this forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. And yes, Joby.
Perfect. Thank you. I mean, I think when I think what has changed, I think we're witnessing a monumental success story that requires a new strategy. And what I mean by that is the biggest shift we're seeing is a triumph in our ability to keep people alive longer than ever before in our human history. So we're managing conditions now that previously used to be fatal, things like diabetes, heart failure, cancer. This is a huge victory, but it brings a new reality, complexity. Our patients are living longer. They're living fuller lives, and they're navigating much more complexities in their healthcare journeys. So many people are coming to healthcare system not necessarily for a cure, but for management of what it means. And so the social fabric itself is also shifting. We're noticing families are more mobile, our village is spread out. And so it's meaning that we're going to have to evolve. There's many people still in Ontario that don't have access to family physicians, to primary care. And this means that many people who don't have that central anchor to accessing healthcare will have a problem in being able to have that ability to have a first contact for their housing questions, their life transitions, their loneliness, some of those other systemic determinants of health. And so when I think about our four-way test and specifically the test of fairness, is it fair for all involved? Is it fair to have a 1970s sort of clinic model serve a 2026 reality? I think the answer is clearly no, and the work ahead of us will be modernization, similar to what was just said about the idea that we're going to need to think about how do we modernize without leaving people out, and how do we do it in a way that we can be equitable with our services. We need to upgrade our sort of social infrastructure to match some of our medical successes. We need to build a system where the fairness means that as our patients age, the social supports that come with it grows with them, not away from them. So ensuring that we're having the healthcare system and our service providers and those that are in community groups are working closely together, it's going to be critically important. And we're going to need to see this at a societal level in a way that allows us all to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie and Zobin. And I think that gives us a fair, rather strong foundation to understand how our very meaning of professionalism is evolving. And building on those shifts, let's look into how the motivation and service culture is playing around with our younger generations who are entering the workplace. And my question on that point is that in a time when contribution is often framed around personal growth, visibility, or return on efforts, how can we nurture a culture of service that feels meaningful and voluntary, particularly among youth and early career professionals? So, keeping that in mind, Amisha, from your work with business and emerging professionals, I'll call you first and then Jovine. From your perspective around the entering the healthcare and training with the students who are entering the profession. So, Amisha, let's begin with you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kiran. I think this is a very valid question, especially in today's times. First of all, I would like to say that I'm really happy with the educational system here. I do have a high schooler in the family, and the fact that volunteerism is cultivated and is encouraged at the high school level is really, really impactful because the youth are already, so there is, if for those who may not know, high school students are required to complete 40 hours of volunteer work throughout their 4 year high school term in order to earn their high school diploma. And I think that is setting up a really good example and a really good stage for youth to enter, to understand what service without the expectation of compensation is all about. And the government also, I have to give a shout out to the to the federal government, because they help business owners like myself as well to employ more youth under the Canada Summer Jobs program, where the federal government covers 50% of the up to 50% of the wages that would be paid to the youth. And all of this to say that it is really important for youth to understand and to appreciate excellent service, because at the end of the day, you can have multiple products, you can have multiple services, but if it is not if it is not coming from the heart, uh, today's consumer is so smart that they will see through you. And I think that is really important for youth to understand, and also for us as business owners and as mentors to emphasize that fact through real work. And again, like Valerie had mentioned earlier, teaching them the consequences of decisions. So it's not just oh, you know, you did great service, but what happens if you do not provide service that is up to par with the expectation of the business, and with the expectation of the consumer as well. Having said that, the consumer is not always king, but there has to be a certain level of yeah, consequences and a certain level of expectation in terms of what service is being provided. And I also think that it is very important to encourage young professionals, especially, to practice service through real responsibility and not just symbolic roles. And when I say real responsibility, I mean giving them the authority. That is something that I did not get a lot of as I was growing in my career, in my profession. I was not given too much authority, but there was a certain level of expectation. The consequences were not laid out in a very proper way. So I think as a business owner, I've tried to change that and showcase to young professionals and young people that enter into my workspace. And I do make it a point to give jobs to the younger generation, because I just feel that it is important for me to train them, and they're like wet clay, so I know I can mold them the way things are expected to, especially in the new world of AI that we are living in, where it's all data driven and not really service driven, because it's all a numbers game at this point. So I just think it is very important to lay out proper expectations and to show them that there are consequences of the decisions that they make. Thank you.
Yeah, I think this is a vital question for the future of our healthcare system because it truly depends on whether this generation chooses important generalist specialties like family medicine. When we talk to medical students or residents, just learners in general, we're hearing that their hesitation isn't about joining the medical field. They love the science and the patient's part. Their hesitation is about lifestyle and sustainability of careers. And so they look at data, they see that currently family docs are doing 19 hours of administrative paperwork that's outside of seeing patients. They see certain levels of isolation that can occur. They can see the very practical question, can I do this job for 30 years without burning out? And I think this is where, as a society, we're going to really have to wrap around our family docs and their clinics to ensure that we can provide some of those solutions for allowing for respite for people who are at home, being able to focus on where we can bring in some of the extra services that exist. When people have housing crisis, can we get social workers to step in? When we have medication conflicts, can we get pharmacists to step in? Can we work towards sharing that cognitive load? For young learners right now, one of the biggest things that they're looking for is to not repeat the sins of the past and have more burnout, but to have some work-life balance that gives them the structural sort of permission to disconnect at the end of the day and know that their patients are still being supported by a team. We're trying to show them a career really will does not have to come at the expense of their own health. And so, really and truly, we have to talk about this from two aspects. Obviously, the important part of recruitment, which is within how we're going to bring people into this field, but also retention. How are we going to ensure that people who are in the profession continue to stay in it and not leave a community because they dislike a clinic or they feel unmoored by their community? One thing we've done is really intended to include service into how people are trained. And so, whether that's the medical students or the residents, the ability to partner with community advocacy partners has been a major part. And Rotary actually has been part of that as well. So, really and truly, we want to bring this ability to have medical learners connect to the community in a way that allows them to see that life side of work-life balance. We need to see mentorship in the financial literacy, the leadership, the community integration pieces. We need to see our new family physicians, new people who are coming to our community really be invited into the civic fabric of what we love about our community. And so really if we can provide the sustainable workplace and the vibrant community connection, we're not only going to be able to train people here, but we're going to be able to keep them in our community.
Uh, Thank you. Thank you for and probably it comes to that service grows when people feel purpose and not pressure, I think. That's what it is. And to bring us to a bigger question now, a core challenge many professionals are facing, confronting too, that in this era of accelerated multidimensional change, where almost everything in professional life comes with the cost, what does it mean and the meaningful vocational service looks like today? And how do we ensure it remains righteous, human, and accessible? I know most of these points have already been taken, but just on a quick note, maybe a minute and a half each, I'll invite Valerie first and then Javi for a small.
Wow. Thank you so much. This has been a really great conversation. And you're right. A lot of these points have been made, but I think the most important one is keeping people at the center. As we have technology, we have rising costs, we have geopolitical things happening in the world. We can't replace empathy and common sense and caring for people. Sometimes when something feels too efficient, but it can be, dehumanizing, and it's usually the sign that something's a little off, and we need to regroup, and we need to rethink about who's at that center and who's at that core. A lot of times in business, we talk about the measure of success, we talk about the bottom line, we talk about profit, but they're not the whole picture. And doing good work still means being honest and fair and thoughtful, even when sometimes cutting corners or leaving people out might seem easier or quicker to do things. We really need, again, to think about what we're doing. And again, being upfront and responsible. And I mentioned this, when we're using tools like AI or any kind of technology that brings us away. Even a lot of times we're on social media, it dehumanizes us. Sometimes we feel like there's a barrier between us as human beings and who we're speaking to. And so I think we need to remember that people trust you more when you're clear about where you're coming from, what your ethics are, what your intention is. I think that's really important. And we also need to know when to slow down, because life goes by so quickly. We are, expected to be on 24/7 with our cell phones and our ability to answer emails all the time. Make sure you take time away, you take time with your family, and just make sure that you're grounded, because at the end of the day, good vocational service and service to others is about remembering that the work was meant to help people. And that's really what it's all about. And it brings it back, always bring it back to that human element.
Yeah, I think we live in a world where everybody knows the price of everything. We also often struggle to measure the value of anything. And so in healthcare, especially because the pressure of having more and more patients behind us pushes us towards a measure of success is efficiency, how many patients can be seen, how fast can we discharge. We're constantly asked to treat patients as almost a unit of service. But we know that efficiency without empathy isn't medicine. It's simply a conveyor belt, it's manufacturing. And so we need to move away from a transactional relationship and more into that relational and that continuity and fiercely protect the relationship. One of the biggest things that technology can help us with is to help us turn away from the screen and turn towards our patients and be eye to eye with people so that we don't, I talked earlier about removing some of the administration paperwork. I don't say that because I want to go home early. I say that so I can stare in the eyes of my patient who's crying and trying to talk to me eye to eye and actually be able to empathize and hear what they're saying, as opposed to trying to complete the charting that's in front of me. I think we
Thank,
always change what we measure. If I could just say one more point on this, I think one of the things is that if we
just one quick one, right? Thank you.
yes, if we measure volume, we're really going to get that assembly line. So we need to get to the point where we move towards goodwill as the asset, right? To be champions of the goodwill in the public sector, so that when you're advocating for your healthcare, that you don't just ask for efficiency, that you ask for humanity, so that we can help, you can help us defend the time it takes to care. Thanks, Dr. Karen.
Thank you. So, looking at the time, so let's now have uh, turn our insights into actions. So, my fourth question and the last question is that looking ahead, what practical strategies, actions, Rotary clubs, district or community organizations can take to make vocational service more relevant, visible, and impactful? And I'll ask that question to each one of you, but just give us just one or the most two concise practical takeaways, staying within a minute or so. And I'll start with Amisha, you first.
Sure. I think that's a very valid question and very actionable. I think it's important to have youth panels alongside professionals. There is a lot to learn from youth, and I think it is very important to let them know that they have a say in how things move forward. They have some really unique ideas, and I think we would be remiss if we did not incorporate those ideas into the new way of life that is with the new AI revolution that's happening at this time.
Uh, Zobin.
I think the biggest thing is I want to leave people with a sense of possibility that now we're at a place where we have tools, we have medical expertise. Our new clinic is opening up and accepting 14,000 patients. I want the ability to have when somebody needs a friend of purpose or a ride, I can prescribe Rotary. That's where I want to get to, and then that will create some ability to honor the truth that we're social beings, help build goodwill across our city, and really be beneficial to every person we serve. Thank you.
Valerie, please.
Yes, thank you so much. You know, at the end of the day, I still think that we are a results-driven society. And so we talk a lot about impact in Rotary. We talk a lot about the tangible impact to people. And people are far more motivated when they can see how their professional skills, mentoring, problem solving, hands-on work are really helping individuals. And one of the ways we can do that, one of the tools I think we have at our disposal is ethical storytelling. It really matters to tell ethical stories, personal. They don't even have to be your stories that you have heard, that you know have impact, that will inspire those towards service, towards altruistic behavior, rather than to Jobin's earlier comment about the savior narratives, moving away from those savior narratives or self-promotion and really just talking about storytelling, who was involved, how you made an impact, and how you left the world a little bit better. So I think that's one of the greatest tools we have.
Thank you. Thank you so very much for these powerful and actionable ideas. I think district can truly take forward. And before I conclude on this segment, DG Sazan, may I invite you to your brief reflections on your vision on how our District 7080 can strengthen, make the vocational service stronger in the years to come. Please.
Certainly, I will try to explain that briefly. And really,
Take
truly,
your
it is.
time. Take your some time
Well,
to let us go.
I reflecting on the answers of our three panelists, there's so much takeaway. Like Dr. Jobin said, if someone needs a ride or someone to listen to, call Rotary. As Valerie mentioned, mentorship. And then, of course, Amisha with the youth. These are all things that I envision that Rotary in our district can do in the future. Have an exchange between youth and more seasoned Rotarians on how we can benefit from each other. Someone who may not be as proficient or knowledgeable about AI can learn from someone who is. On the other hand, someone who is not in the career just yet, like a high school student or a university student, can learn from professionals about ethical behavior. I think these are all things that we can look forward to as Rotarians and as district members to work together to build this vision that vocational service is still a very strong part of Rotary. And what I really like about all three panelists is that we cannot forget humanity, and that we need to remember that it's not all about service and being fast, but that we keep our heart in it. And I think there are some possibilities that we could do in the district. Offer professional services at, well, no cost or minimal cost, mentorship, invite young professionals to some kind of profession marketplaces. I know Assistant Governor Sunil is the chair of the Rotary Means Business Fellowship, where business people can exchange ideas. There are so many ways, And it is hard to sometimes find the right direction, but with people like Amisha, Dr. Jobin, and Valerie, I think these people are the ones that we can work together to create this vision even better. So unfortunately I'm only one small cog in this wheel, and this takes a lot of work together, but together we can certainly do it. And if I just may say about AI, as a trained linguist, I sometimes wonder what people think when they see these perfectly written abstracts, but they lack personality. Sometimes having a mistake in there makes it so much more human. And so I encourage everyone, use AI, but don't rely solely on it. That's my final word on that one. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, DJ. And yeah, so what we have heard across all these reflections is that while that, like all of you have said, that while the tools change, the technologies evolve, the professions transform, the Rotary's sole purpose remains service through professional excellence. And one question I always want to ask, and Valerie already put that there, that how can we all have to think just one question, that how can my vocation serve today's world better? So that with that shared understanding, let's now open the floor to the audience questions. And I'll request Farhan Kewa, our member from District Vocational Service Committee, that he'll read the questions from the chat and put it. So, Badar, you have a hand raised.
Yeah.
Let Farhan come up with the questions, and then I'll come up to you. Or if you want to come up with something now, please do.
No, I can wait until Farhan
Yeah,
goes
please,
through his question.
Farhan, please. Snil, can
Thank-
you make his?
Yep. Can you guys hear me? Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Karen.
we want to
Appreciate
see
it.
you too, Sunil. Is it possible?
No, actually has the same problem like what you had,
All
Kiran,
right.
the beginning of.
Perfect. Please go ahead, Farhan.
That's
Thank
fine.
you.
I've not put on my makeup today, so I'm good without the camera. No, great. Thank you very much, Kieran, and to all the panelists. Very great discussions. The first question we have is to Valerie. What strategies can Rotary adopt to attract and retain members from younger generations, particularly by aligning engagement opportunities with their vocational interests, economic realities that we're going through right now, and evolving technology needs? I know a lot of clubs are challenged right now. So, any suggestions you have on this?
Yeah, thank you. I think that's the biggest question that we face in our organization. 20 years from now, our organization will look different. And the stewards of our organization will be the people, the next generations. And so I think first and foremost, we need to give them authority, as was said earlier. We need to give them. We need to work beside them, but we can't. We need to give them the authority to make decisions about the organization that they're going to steward in the future. So, I always hesitate to speak and put my opinion on what the next generation wants. But if I go by the conversations I've had, what surveys through Rotary tell us, we know that we need to, first of all, keep things very, very flexible. The work environment is very different, and younger members are balancing demanding jobs, family responsibilities, changing schedules. And yes, we all were facing that when we were, early professionals as well. But again, I think that with technology and the demands and even the cost of of housing and everything else, even the way they work, remote working, nomad working, attending a meeting is not necessarily something that they can do that perhaps we were able to do in our professions. So I think we need to keep things flexible. We talked about keeping things people-centered because I believe that young people want to serve, but they also want to feel like it is supplementing their job rather than adding to their resume. So I think they want to serve and they want to be in a service opportunity that is very targeted and centered on what they believe in. So whether it's the environment, whether it's food security, whether it's whatever they may be involved in. And so I think we need to listen to what is important to them, what they want our organization to look like in the future, how they want to serve, and we need to be ready to change. We need to look at our organization from the top down and the bottom up. And really the bottom up is the most important because our clubs and our members are who will shape what Rotary looks like in the future and today. And so listening, being able to adapt and changing our models is very important to being relevant. And I still think that service and Rotary has a huge place in the world. I just think that we need to move into direction that is going to be relevant to the next generation. So there's a lot that we can do. It was mentioned that thank you, Assistant Governor Sunil, for being the Rotary Means Business Chair. I can say that my own club has held a number of events and we are attracting a lot of members because we are recognizing that our community wants networking. They want to bring back some of those original concepts of Rotary, and that is being together with like-minded people in the community that will advance our careers, deal with people with the right ethics and morals that we find in Rotary. But that's my community. Every community might have a different need. Your community might have a huge food insecurity. And so maybe bringing together partners in the community that are focused on the same things so that we're not working in silos, that we're not duplicating jobs. This is how we're going to attract our members, is by understanding what the needs are in our community and attracting the people that want to make a difference. And the people are there. We just need to give them and sell that product that everybody's looking for. So I hope that helps.
That was fantastic. Thank you very much. And I will now go to people who have raised their hands. Sunil, if you can go ahead. I know Badar was next.
But
I
was
can't see
there.
the others. Yeah, I can't see the others, so I will let you handle that.
Yeah, before
Badar,
Badar
go ahead.
So if anyone have any questions, please raise their hands. We'll follow one by one. Badar, go ahead.
Please, Badar, please go ahead.
Okay. First of all, excellent discussion. I have been privileged to be in a vocation that allows me to work with Canadian families. This year will be my 26th year working as an investment professional in and around Brampton. The environment that Jobin and everybody else referred to from an economic perspective is indeed very different than when I first started my career in Brampton in 2000. Back in 2000, G7 countries, including Canada, were still roughly 65% of the G20 GDP. Today, that's around 30%. So we're operating in a very complicated environment where, as I'm explaining this to old Brampton, old Ontario families that I've been working with, I have to be cognizant about their socioeconomic frame of reference, which is embedded in what they remember Brampton, Mississauga, Oakville to be like over the last 40, 50, 60 years. But at the same time, I have a fiduciary duty to help them understand what is in their best interest from the next 5, 10, 15, 20-year perspective. So I was just wondering if I can actually have Valerie speak to that a little bit as a more senior Rotarian in terms of whether you're experiencing or you're seeing some of the same. And Suzanne, maybe you can address some of that too. across the district from a club culture perspective.
Sorry, Badar. So your question is, are we seeing the financial impact to our members joining or the work we can do in Rotary?
Yeah, my question is, as the geoeconomics puts more pressure on Canadian economy in terms of how we're allocating resources to our institutions, whether we're also seeing some of that play out in Rotary in terms of how older Rotarians might be looking at the dynamic needs of the community in today's context.
Okay, pretty deep question. You know, I remember when I joined Rotary and was still really learning about what our role was in society. Some of it was pretty obvious when you think about, just helping out communities in the shortfall. What I struggled with a little bit, even at the beginning, was making up that shortfall for government spending or public institutions that had budgetary cuts and we were making up the shortfall. I think that's become a reality in our society today, that in order to bring, and of course, Dr. Jobin could speak more about the healthcare sector for sure, but it's certainly in bringing equitable access to everyone, that we have a role to play, as well as other NGOs, and in bringing that shortfall to light and supporting it. It's interesting how each of us, again, in our own communities, have found what is important to our communities. And it's probably, and I know it's very different across Ontario, probably even very different across the GTA. How our older members feel on that have been in Rotary for a long time, I think they've probably seen the biggest shift in who we support and how we support them with the history. And I think that mentorship, that history, is something that we really need to tap into, that sometimes we lose within our clubs. We lose that historic perspective, and I think it's really important teaching as well to our younger members and to some of the members who haven't been in Rotary a long time, to understand that legacy piece of where we have supported our communities. I know I speak a lot at 100th anniversaries. We have a lot of clubs who have reached that 100-year milestone. And when I do research before I speak, it's incredible to see the influence and legacy of clubs that have been in their community for 100 years and what they've been able to support. I think that's something we should all be extremely, extremely proud of. And I think again, that legacy is important to understand where we're going in the future as well. So I'm not sure I've answered completely your question. I do think, though, that it is a changing and evolving environment, and we need to understand what our role is going to be going forward. But again, we talked a lot today about putting people first, having that equitable access.
I think what I wanted to bring across is that as the communities continue to evolve and grow, we need to be cognizant of that historic frame of reference that some of our older members have, as we as professionals help them continue to build on that by adding more resources and engaging new members in our clubs.
Sure.
Okay.
There is another question in the chat for
I think Suzanne has to answer. Suzanne, do you want to say something?
I'm sure I can certainly say something. I definitely agree with what Valerie said about the legacy pieces and the legacy in the clubs. In the past, now that I have visited so many smaller and, if you will, rural clubs, I don't really like that term, but not from the bigger cities, I have seen how important in those clubs sometimes smaller clubs, the legacy of what Rotary has done in the past still is. And I'm amazed at what some of these clubs do on a monthly, even almost a weekly basis. And I think to go back to what Valerie said earlier in the discussion, to create awareness to not just more seasoned members, but also newer members. We have to go out and tell these stories about what the clubs have done, what could be done, and the more personal a story is, the clearer it can be why it is necessary to support a lot of these initiatives to maybe cover those shortfalls of budgeting. So I think it is a combination of legacy and personal stories that will make it clearer for, I hope, a lot more even younger members why it is important to contribute to cause. I hope that
Thank you,
makes
Cezanne.
sense.
Thank you very much. And yes, there is one more question from
Um,
Brian. So yeah, Snil, I think you can answer that. And then I think we have 5 more minutes only for the question answer, or
yeah,
Dr.
12:15.
Jobin wanted to answer something to this as well, I
sure,
believe.
sure. And I am coming to one question to Jobin in the
I just
in
wanted to
my
speak really
section.
quickly to this because Valerie had mentioned about the health aspect. And I think polio eradication is a major thing that Rotary does exceptionally well and continues to do. And I know Badar works in that as a local chair, and I'm on that committee as well. I think one of our biggest assets as we continue to grow and recruit members is that we're starting to have a bit of a diaspora bridge. We don't have to fly across the ocean to learn about what diasporas need. And as we continue to expand into different areas and bring in new members, we're able to bring in that leverage, and we can actually start shifting into almost some like knowledge remittances. How can a area provide some of that information? We also could possibly aim to add in some of the funding that we provide into an area of, can we sponsor vocational training teams or ways to upskill local staff on the ground by connecting those Rotary clubs and allowing for increased connections where we have large diasporas in one club, connecting them to local areas and allowing us to have an increased reach within our geopolitical region.
Yeah, you have covered half of my question, but after Snil, I'll come with my question to Valerie and you together.
Thank you, Kiran. There is a question in the chat. Where can we find more info on the Rotary Men's Business Program in our local area, KW area, by Brian? So I would like to answer this. Brian, I did visit many clubs so far, promoting on Rotary Men's Business in all the different clusters of our district. And I'll be happy to connect with you on a one-on-one call later today or anytime coming week. We can discuss on this and we can take to the next level. Thank you.
Hope this answers your question, Brian. Thank you, Snil. And just a yes and no question to Valerie, because then I can talk with you offline. So I know that you led the vocational training team to Australia at one time. Is it possible, or will you help to create one in our district? Like Jobin also said, with so many expertise available now in the district, always there was, but interested in that. Can we do that?
Absolutely. When I led the vocational training team, we actually did it through a district grant, which is possible, as well as a global
Yes.
grant. Of course, a global grant has a $30,000 minimum that needs to be met, which is actually very easy when it comes to vocational training teams. But it is an amazing way to share your your profession. I went to Australia for 7 weeks on youth suicide and depression, and we had a multidisciplinary team from youth workers in schools to social workers to a youth psychiatrist. And it was an amazing experience that we still speak as a team, and they made tangible differences in their careers and were able to incorporate as well as share a lot with the team in Australia. So they can be very, very impactful and really amazing to our vocations, especially now that we used to have group study exchange where everybody would have a different vocation. Now with vocational training teams, it's more within the same vocation, but multidisciplinary. So everybody learns from each other as well as the shared training that goes on with the country that you're visiting. So I would love to help out with that in any way possible.
Thank you. We'll reach out to you. And the last and a very quick question, Jobin. You also mentioned this and about your community clinic. You discussed me long time ago, and that's very positive. Will be a very positive field for we Rotarians to help some the communities around. And will it be possible to have some small teams to train the CPR, like the first aid things to the Rotarians as well as the community people
Yeah, absolutely.
in that clinic?
100%, yes. So as people might know, our new medical school is within the old Bramley Library, where I was trained my CPR training when I was a kid. So it'd be great to bring that back, and I absolutely think we can do that. In addition to providing that capacity building and that ability to do CPR training, we're also going to be able to have access for patients who don't have a family physician. So those that would like to access our clinic, IHC at torontomu.ca, we're actively seeking patients who don't have a family doctor in our region.
Thank you. I think considering the time, we can move towards finishing this. All that. So now, as we come to closer that our today's conversation, the one message is very clear and that if the technology defines how to work and economy defines why to work, Rotary guides us for whom to work. I think that's what we have learned just now. And I would like to acknowledge the District Vocational Service Team, the committee, whose commitment and teamwork made today's session possible. Thank you very much, Ed, Vale, Farhan, and Cyril. Thank you. As a committee, you did a wonderful job. Would you like to say something to conclude, DG Suzanne, or can I move on?
But please move on. I just wanted to quickly say thank you to everyone on the panel, everyone who participated, and thank you to the entire vocational service committee. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, thank you, the panelists, everyone who attended today's session, district leadership. Thank you so very much, and wishing you all a meaningful day ahead. Thank you for being here.
Thank you all.